Chapter 67. The cell was quiet now, save for the occasional shift of fabric or soft breath. A few of them were lying across my lap, their slender frames curled up like frightened fawns finally given a moment's rest. I gently stroked one girl's hair. She couldn't have been older than 13, maybe younger. Her pointed ears twitched slightly under my touch before she relaxed again. Around me, the others had gathered close. Elves, young women, older girls. They had already been here before I arrived. Prisoners like me, caged, degraded, waiting to be sold off like wares in a marketplace. How did I end up here? It felt so distant now, but it was only a few weeks ago that I had been standing on a mountaintop, the wind rushing around me as the sky dragon let out its final cry. A clean kill, by my hand alone. I had left the people in awe, the guild stunned, and the skies safe once more. A satisfying victory, one I had no desire to parade around. Still, I had responsibilities. So I returned, as any good adventurer would. The guild had been abuzz when I walked through the door. Word spread fast, after all, but the receptionist only offered a tight-lipped smile before quietly beckoning me to the back. "Yuki-sama would like to see you," she said. "He's waiting in the private office." Of course, I had expected that much. I followed in silence, keeping my expression composed, my steps graceful. Eyes followed me through the hall, some filled with admiration, others envy, and a few with wary interest. The door to Yuki's office was already open. He looked up from his desk as I entered, the ever-polite smile on his face exactly the same as the first time we met. Perfect posture, smooth voice, every movement carefully measured. "Celine," he said warmly. "Please, come in. I've been looking forward to speaking with you." I gave a small bow. "It's an honor, Yuki-sama." He gestured for me to take a seat. "I've heard about your battle with the Sky Dragon. Quite the feat." "It was a necessary response," I replied softly. "I only did what had to be done." He chuckled lightly. "Spoken like a true hero." I said nothing. Yuki's smile didn't waver, but his eyes began to sharpen just slightly, like a blade sheathed behind silk. "I must admit, your abilities are quite rare," he said, fingers steepled beneath his chin. "And your magic, unusually refined. It reminds me of another person I've heard of recently." I tilted my head ever so slightly, the motion practiced, relaxed. "Oh, that's flattering," he chuckled. "There's a slime of all things that's been making waves lately. Quite the curious one. Ever heard of a being called rimuru?" The name landed like a stone dropped in water. But I didn't let it show. I smiled lightly, brushing a stray lock of hair behind my ear. "I'm afraid not. That's quite a name, though. Hard to forget." His eyes narrowed for just a second, but then he nodded. "Yes, it is, isn't it?" He leaned back in his chair. "Just a rumor, really. Some say this rimuru is a monster. Others say, a harmless slime." I gave a small shrug. "If they're slime, I imagine I wouldn't need to be in a hurry to meet them." I let out a soft, polite laugh, just enough to match the atmosphere, not enough to seem dismissive. "Though I must admit, you hear all sorts of wild things traveling around as much as I do." Yuki's smile stretched again, calm and unreadable. "I see. You've been all over, haven't you? It's unusual to see someone so young with such experience." I inclined my head. "Elves live long lives. It adds up quickly." He tapped a finger thoughtfully against the desk. "True. Still, your demeanor, your language, it's refined. But not quite like most adventurers. Here it comes." His tone didn't change, but the question behind his words shifted subtly. "Have you always lived in this world?" I met his eyes. Steady, serene. "Of course." A pause. "Not long but noticeable." "I see. Forgive me if I seemed intrusive," he said. "I'm simply curious about talented people like you. That's all." "Of course." I smiled gently. "Curiosity is natural, especially in your position." He didn't press further, but something in the air remained watchful. Like a predator just beneath the surface, still assessing its prey. "I appreciate your report, Celine. Your handling of the Sky Dragon will go a long way toward stabilizing that region," Yuki said, rising smoothly from his chair. I stood as well, offering a graceful bow. "I'm happy to be of service." He offered his hand, polite, diplomatic. I took it. His grip was firm, but light. A gesture of goodwill, but his eyes lingered on mine. "Let's keep in touch," he said. "Adventurers like you, I feel you'll have a role to play in this world's future." I smiled as I released his hand. "Perhaps." And then I turned and left the room. Only when the door clicked shut behind me did I allow my shoulders to lower, just a little. He was testing me, and he didn't get what he wanted. But that didn't mean he'd stop looking. I shut the door behind me, the inn's familiar wooden scent wrapping around me like a blanket. The soft creak of the floorboards beneath my boots was oddly comforting after a day like this. Rimuru, I'm back. My thoughts flowed outward, tethered by the silent link between us. There was a slight pause, then Rimuru's voice echoed in my mind, clear and composed. Welcome back. Did he suspect anything? He tried. I walked over to the small desk, unclipping my cloak. Yuki was subtle, too subtle. He asked carefully phrased questions, trying to gauge whether I knew you, or if I was an otherworlder. A flicker of warmth passed through the connection. And you didn't give him anything? Of course not. I smiled faintly. I've learned from the best, after all. Ciel's voice chimed in next, thoughtful and soft. Did he seem convinced? He didn't press further, but he'll keep watching. He's clever. That he is, Rimuru responded. Good work, Celine. We'll keep monitoring things on our end too. Rest for now. The link quieted. I exhaled, the tension finally draining from my shoulders. My role was just beginning, but at least for tonight, I could lower my guard. The next few days passed uneventfully. I continued my life as Celine, the wandering elven adventurer. I took a few simple quests: monster subjugation, herb gathering, escort missions for trade caravans passing through Bloomond. Enough to maintain appearances. Enough to keep moving. At the guild, I chatted with familiar staff. Drank tea in the lounge while listening to adventurers boast about their latest kills. It was peaceful. Too peaceful, perhaps. There were no signs of danger. No shadows following me. No strange behavior from Yuki's subordinates. Everything was normal, but I knew better than to believe in peace lasting. It was sudden. One moment, I was reaching out to my main body through our usual connection and idle thought, just to share a silly observation from the marketplace. And then, nothing. Emptiness. The link that had always been there, faint but ever present, was gone. I froze. Not muted. Not weakened. Gone. I reached out again, more deliberately this time. Rimuru. Nothing. Master. Still nothing. No warmth. No reply. Just silence. Panic coiled in my chest, cold and sharp. I tried again, several times in succession, forcing the mental link open with sheer will. Still nothing. Had something happened? Had someone cut the connection? No. Even Ciel should have responded if Rimuru couldn't. Unless. I dashed to the window and threw it open. The streets were still bustling as always, the noise of daily life unchanged. But none of it mattered anymore. I had to get back. I didn't know what was going on, but I wouldn't sit here and wait to find out. Rimuru had left the city a little while ago, that much I knew, but there was no reason our link should have disappeared, even over long distances. Unless something had interfered, and if something was interfering with her, I wasn't going to waste another second here. Unfortunately, unlike Rimuru, I didn't possess the luxury of teleportation. Every step would have to be made the long way. But that didn't matter. I was already packing before I realized it: gear, cloak, weapons. Every motion automatic. The moment I stepped outside, I was Celine no longer. I was a shadow on the wind, racing toward Tempest. 3 days. I didn't stop. Not once. No rest. No sleep. No distractions. The sun rose and fell, and rose again, but I kept running. Trees blurred into streaks of green and brown. Rivers, boulders, monsters, they were just obstacles in the path. I didn't feel tired. I didn't even think about tiredness. All that mattered was reaching Rimuru. By the time I entered the depths of Jura Forest, my cloak was tattered, my boots were covered in dust and dew, and even the beasts of the forest gave me wide berth. My magicals pulsed with urgency, raw and unfiltered, a storm barely held back beneath my skin. I was close. I could feel it. The air felt familiar again. Alive. I whispered under my breath, almost there. And then, without warning, a wave of dizziness. My knees buckled. I caught myself on a tree trunk, blinking in confusion. What? I hadn't felt tired in years. Not like this. Not since becoming what I am. But suddenly my limbs felt heavy. My head spun. My vision blurred at the edges, and I slumped down, gasping for breath I didn't need. What is this? A strange warmth spread through me, not magic, not poison. It was sleepiness. Real, overwhelming sleepiness. And for the first time in forever, I couldn't fight it. I tried to stand, to call out, to scream Ciel's name through the link, but my thoughts were fogged, my voice didn't come out, and the world swayed. I collapsed onto the grass, face turned toward the path that led to Tempest. Ciel, and everything went black. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. I opened my eyes to the dull creak of wood and the rattling of wheels. My head ached. My body felt heavy. My magic was gone. I reached up. Fingers brushed against cold metal at my neck. A collar. Magic suppression type. TCH. I sat up slowly, scanning my surroundings. I was in the back of a carriage, enclosed, but not locked in a cell. Hay on the floor. Iron bars on the window slats. It wasn't made for comfort. How long have I been out? I activated thought communication. Static. ... Rimuru. A few seconds passed. Then, finally, you're awake. Her voice, my voice, technically was sharp and relieved at once. I lost contact with you a few days ago. What happened? I was heading back through Jura Forest. Got hit with a wave of sleepiness. Unnatural. I passed out before I could react. TCH. That explains it. There was a pause. Then Rimuru spoke again quietly. Tempest was attacked by Pharmus while I was away facing Hinata. By the time I returned, many lives had already been lost. To save them, I chose the path of the Demon Lord. It was the only way to bring them back. The dizziness you felt must have been a side effect of my evolution. I froze. ... I see. That's heavy. Outside the carriage, bandits chatted with greasy excitement. We'll get loads of coins for this one. It's been forever since we nabbed an elf. She's real pretty too. Nobles love exotic girls like that. ... Elf trafficking. I lowered my head, eyes narrowing. So that's what this is. Magic collar. Slave. Traders. Targeting elves. I see. I mean, Rimuru, what do you want to do? I murmured aloud, even though I knew the answer already. There was a moment of silence. Then my own voice, dry and calm. Play along. Find out who's behind this. No mercy once we know. ... Got it. I lay back down, feigning unconsciousness. Let them think I'm helpless. They'll regret that soon enough. ... A few days later, the iron door creaked open, and I was roughly pushed inside. I didn't resist. I let my body fall to the cold, hard floor as if I were nothing more than another helpless prisoner. The door slammed shut behind me with a final, echoing thud. Darkness and silence swallowed me. But not completely. I slowly sat up, golden eyes adjusting to the dim light. Several figures stirred in the corners of the room, slender silhouettes, their movements cautious and quiet. Elves. One of them rose to her feet. She was not aged, yet there was a quiet maturity in her bearing, as if years of experience had tempered her spirit. Her long, shining white hair framed a face of serene beauty, though a trace of weariness lingered in her eyes. Even so, her posture remained steady, her sky-blue gaze studying me with a mixture of caution and quiet curiosity. Are you hurt? She asked. I shook my head gently. No, I'm fine. She hesitated for a moment longer before giving a small nod. I am Mira, and you? I nodded and offered a small smile. Celine. She studied me for a moment, then spoke again. I'm from the Jura Forest. I left home to find work in a city. Her gaze wavered, and her voice dropped. But I was captured, and thrown in here to be sold. Her words carried a quiet weight. I could see the sadness pressing at the edges of her composure, the way she tried to hold herself together for the sake of the others. Without thinking, I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her. She stiffened for a moment, then exhaled slowly and let herself lean into the embrace. It's all right, I murmured. You're not alone anymore. When we stepped apart, the tension in the cell seemed to ease. A few of the others drew closer, tentative but hopeful. Soon, we were all talking small, cautious conversations at first, then warmer, softer ones as the minutes passed. By the time the silence settled again, it wasn't heavy anymore. We were strangers no longer. We were together. As the quiet conversations carried on, another woman stepped forward from the group. She seemed to be around the same age as Mira, yet where Mira exuded calm restraint, this one radiated warmth and vitality. Her long, light red hair swayed gracefully with each step, catching the light like strands of fire, and her warm, amber-red eyes sparkled with unspoken cheer. There was a refined, mature beauty about her, yet her open, inviting demeanor made her presence feel instantly comforting. I'm Ruby, she said with an almost playful smile, her voice light despite the circumstances. And I'm not very good at sitting still, so being stuck in here has been torture. Her honesty earned a few small chuckles from the others, and I couldn't help but smile back. I'll try to make it a little less boring for you, then. Oh, I think you already have, she replied, tilting her head with a grin. It's been too quiet around here. We needed someone new to shake things up. She settled herself near me without hesitation, chatting easily and asking questions about where I was from and what I'd been doing before ending up here. I kept my answers light, focusing on the present rather than the past. Mira glanced at us now and then, her calm smile balancing out Ruby's energy. It was a strange but comforting mix, the grounded steadiness of one and the cheerful spark of the other. Soon, I found myself laughing along with them. The weight of the cell felt a little lighter. We weren't free yet, but we were starting to feel like friends. Ruby was different from Mira. Where Mira carried herself with quiet dignity and calm, Ruby's energy was bright and easygoing, even in a place like this. She had the kind of personality that made it impossible not to respond in kind, as if she simply refused to let the gloom of the cell drag her down. We sat near one corner, the dim light from the small barred window barely reaching us, yet Ruby's voice and expressions made the space feel less suffocating. She told me bits about herself, how she'd once traveled far from her village to work as a trader's assistant, only for her luck to take a turn when bandits raided the caravan. Despite the weight of the story, she laughed lightly at the memory of how she'd stubbornly tried to fight back with nothing but a cooking pan. I found myself smiling more than I expected. "You really don't let things keep you down, do you?" I said, and without thinking, I reached out and placed my hand on her head. Her voice softened instantly, her smile turning faint but tender. That's nice," she murmured, leaning into my hand. The rhythmic motion of my fingers brushing through her hair seemed to lull her almost immediately. Her eyelids drooped, her shoulders relaxed, and before long she shifted to curl up at my side. Without hesitation, she let her head settle on my lap as though it belonged there. I adjusted slightly to give her more space and continued stroking her hair, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breathing as she drifted into a peaceful sleep. It was then that I noticed movement from the other side of the cell. The youngest-looking elf, a girl who had been sitting quietly, watching us with wide, curious eyes, cautiously shuffled closer. She paused right beside me, glancing at Ruby's sleeping form, then at my face, as if silently asking for permission. I offered her a small smile and patted my other leg. That was all the encouragement she needed. With a quiet sigh, she lay down, resting her head on my lap opposite Ruby. I chuckled softly. "All right, you too, huh?" My fingers threaded gently through her hair, and she relaxed instantly, a faint, content sound escaping her as her eyes fluttered shut. The scene was unexpectedly calming. Two heads resting in my lap, both breathing evenly, faces free from the tension of captivity. I didn't stop my motions, letting each stroke be slow and steady, the way one might calm a frightened animal. Around us, the other elves had fallen silent, watching with warm smiles and softened expressions. Mira, seated a little further away, caught my gaze and gave a small nod. It wasn't just gratitude, it was trust. In this place, surrounded by iron bars and uncertainty, trust was something rare and precious. The cell felt different now. The cold stone walls, the faint scent of dampness, the muffled sounds from outside, they were still there, but they didn't dominate the air anymore. Instead, there was a gentle, almost protective atmosphere. I let my gaze wander toward the barred door, my mind already turning to the task ahead. I still needed to figure out who was behind all of this, who dared to run such an operation. But for now, I couldn't bring myself to disturb them. For now, they could rest. I'd make sure of it. A few days had passed since I woke up in this cell. Morning light filtered in weakly through the tiny barred window high above, the kind that didn't warm so much as it simply reminded you the world outside was still moving. I sat with my back against the cold stone wall, my legs stretched out in front of me. Several of the elves were still asleep, some leaning against my side, others tucked in close. Ruby was curled up beside me, an arm draped lightly across my lap like she was making sure I couldn't leave without her noticing. Over the past few days, thanks to her cheerful persistence, the others had grown incredibly attached to me. Even Mira, who had been more reserved, seemed to find comfort in my presence. I'd gotten used to waking up like this, quiet breathing all around me, the warmth of others pressed close. It was a fragile peace, but it was ours. That peace shattered when a muffled commotion sounded from beyond the door. Rough voices. The heavy shuffle of boots. I instantly straightened, my eyes narrowing toward the sound. The metallic clank of the lock turning was followed by the sharp creak of the hinges. The door swung open, and two bandits stood, their faces shadowed by the morning light spilling in behind them. Without a word, one of them shoved someone forward. A small figure stumbled into the cell, barely catching herself before she fell. She couldn't have been older than 10. Her eyes caught my attention, first gems of onyx and amethyst, wide with panic. They darted around the room, searching for something, someone, an escape that wasn't there. She tried to take a step, but her legs gave way almost immediately, and she collapsed to her knees, her palms hitting the stone floor with a faint slap. Her hair was striking long, deep black that seemed to swallow the dim light of the cell, the tips fading into a vivid violet that shimmered faintly whenever she moved. The long, delicate shape of her ears left no doubt she was an elf as well. The bandits didn't say a word. They just slammed the door shut behind her, the sound of the lock clicking back into place echoing harshly in the small space. Their footsteps receded, leaving only silence and the sound of the girl's uneven breathing. She didn't lift her head right away. Her small shoulders trembled as she sat there on the cold stone. The others in the cell exchanged looks, concern, sympathy, quiet anger, but none of them moved immediately, likely wary of startling her. I did. I carefully shifted the sleeping elves from my lap, easing each one onto the blanket beside me. Making sure they were still comfortable, I slowly rose to my feet and walked toward her. I crouched down in front of her, making sure my movements were slow and unthreatening. "Hey," I said softly. "You're safe for now." Her head lifted just enough for those jewel-like eyes to meet mine, still wide with fear. I extended my hand toward her, palm open. "Come on, let's get you out of the cold." For a moment, she hesitated. Then, with a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, her small fingers reached out and grasped mine. The trembling didn't stop, but she let me help her up. The small elf girl's hand was still in mine as I led her a few steps away from the door. She kept glancing over her shoulder, as though expecting the bandits to return. The soft rustle of movement came from behind me. Several of the others had woken, stirred by the noise. Ruby sat up first, rubbing her eyes before blinking at the sight of the newcomer. Mira was next, her sharp gaze immediately softening. "Is she?" Mira began, but her voice was gentle. The girl stiffened at the sound, her grip on my hand tightening like a lifeline. Without saying a word, she stepped closer, almost pressing herself into my side, her head ducked low. "It's all right," I murmured, shifting just enough to keep her shielded behind me. "No one here will hurt you." Ruby, still half awake but already wearing her usual bright expression, scooted closer on her knees. "Hi, what's your name?" she asked cheerfully. The girl peeked out for half a second, then hid again, her small hands clutching the fabric of my clothes. "Ruby," I said, softly, giving her a look. "Give her a little time." Mira approached more slowly, kneeling down a short distance away so she wouldn't tower over the child. "Little one," she said in a calm, measured tone, "we're all prisoners here too. You're not alone." The girl didn't reply, but I could feel her trembling ease just a fraction. She kept peeking at the others from behind me, as though trying to decide if she could trust them. One of the other elves offered a soft smile and held up her hands in a placating gesture. "We just want to help you, that's all." Her response was to press closer against my back, her forehead lightly bumping into it. I sighed quietly, not in frustration, but in understanding. She'd probably just been torn from somewhere she thought was safe, and tossed into a place filled with strangers. I rested my hand on her head, lightly stroking her hair. "You can take all the time you need," I told her. To my surprise, a tiny, involuntary sound escaped her, a soft, contented purr, like a kitten nestled somewhere warm. It was so faint I almost thought I imagined it, but Ruby's eyes widened in delight. "She purrs. That's adorable," Ruby whispered, as if speaking too loudly might scare her away. The girl froze for a second, then shyly nuzzled into my palm, her earlier tension melting away bit by bit. Her shoulders dropped, and I could feel the rhythm of her breathing settle into something calmer. Minutes passed like that, quiet, with only the distant sounds of the guards outside. I kept my strokes gentle, and Ruby eventually leaned against my side, watching with an expression that could melt stone. Finally, in the smallest voice, the girl whispered, "Katerina." I blinked down at her. My name." She peeked up at me through her hair, cheeks faintly pink. "Is Katerina." Ruby immediately grinned. "Katerina, that's a pretty name." Her lips twitched just barely into what might have been the beginning of a smile, before she ducked back behind me again. "Katerina, then," I said warmly. "It's nice to meet you." Her gaze lingered on me, as if weighing whether I could be trusted. I kept my tone calm, my hand steady as I stroked her hair. "I suppose I should introduce myself too," I continued. My name is Celine. My name is Mira. Mira introduced herself with a small nod. Nice to meet you. Ruby bounced slightly in place. Oh, and I'm Ruby, she said with her usual bubbly energy, waving enthusiastically. Two other older elves nearby stepped forward. One, a soft-spoken woman with braided silver hair, smiled warmly. I'm Alara. It's nice to meet you, little one. And I'm Lena, the other added with a gentle nod. You're safe here, Katarina. Katarina's eyes darted between them all. She still stayed pressed against my side, but the way her ears twitched told me she was listening carefully. Ruby leaned closer, grinning. See, everyone here's nice. No need to hide. Katarina hesitated, but instead of letting go, she shifted slightly, tugging on the hem of my sleeve as though asking silently for permission. I smiled, settling down against the wall so I was sitting more comfortably. Without a word, she crawled onto my lap, curling up like a small animal seeking shelter. Her long black hair spilled over my arm, and I could feel her breathing deepen as the tension drained from her body. Ruby beamed and sat down beside us, resting her head lightly against my shoulder. A moment later, Lena and Fina joined, sitting nearby in quiet companionship. As the hours slipped by, quiet conversation filled the room. The heavy tension from earlier gradually gave way to a calmer stillness, until the faint glow of daylight outside had faded into night. By then, Katarina had nestled closer, her eyelids drooping with the weight of exhaustion. Before long, she had drifted off, her head resting gently against me. I absently ran my fingers through her hair, a soft hum escaping my lips. The other elves watched with warm, approving smiles, as though they'd been waiting for this moment. And as Katarina slept soundly in my lap, I knew I couldn't let anything harm her or any of them. The first thing I noticed upon waking was the weight on my lap. Blinking in the dim morning light filtering through the barred window, I found Katarina, the elf girl from last night, curled up there as though she owned the spot. Her long black hair spilled over my legs, the strands warm to the touch, and she made a faint, low sound with each exhale, not quite purring, but close enough to make me think of a contented cat. I brushed my hand through her hair without thinking. Immediately, she tilted her head into my palm, a subtle smile tugging at her lips. Her eyes opened slowly, one a vivid violet, the other deep black, and she gazed up at me like she'd been waiting for me to wake. Morning. Good morning, Katarina, I replied softly. That earned me a small pout. Just Kat. My mom and my friends always called me that. Katarina sounds way too formal. Very well, Kat. I adjusted a strand of hair from her cheek. Her smile deepened, and she studied me for a long moment before murmuring, "You're warm, just like her." I arched a brow. Her. My mom, she said simply, then gave me a pleading, almost kitten-like look. So, can I call you mom? I opened my mouth to object, but those mismatched eyes made it impossible to say no. If you wish. The way her face lit up made the cold stone cell feel just a little less oppressive. Without hesitation, she settled back into my lap, utterly content, as if being my self-appointed daughter was the most natural thing in the world. A small burst of giggles came from Ruby, who had been watching the whole thing with wide eyes. She clapped her hands together, her smile mischievous and childlike. Celine, you got promoted. You're a mom now. My eye twitched. Ruby. She leaned closer, grinning ear to ear. Does that mean I should call you mama too? Hee Tilda. Before I could scold her, Myra's warm laugh drifted in. Sitting nearby, her eyes glowed with gentle approval as she watched. Honestly, it suits you. Look at her, how peaceful she is in your lap. I think you'll be a wonderful mother figure to her. Mira, please don't encourage this, I sighed, though her words carried a strange warmth that made my chest tighten. Ruby flopped dramatically against the wall, still giggling. Mama Celine Tilda. Kat murmured drowsily from my lap, it does suit her, before nuzzling closer. Surrounded by their laughter and smiles, I could only brush her hair again, a small, helpless smile tugging at my lips despite myself. The stone beneath us was cold and unyielding, a reminder of how long we had been shut away in this place. The air was still, almost heavy, until it wasn't. Sudden voices broke through the silence. At first distant, then nearer, echoing down the narrow halls above. Protect the merchandise. Don't let them through. Hurry, move the goods. The sharp commands carried urgency, panic just barely hidden beneath authority. Boots struck against stone, heavy and fast, their rhythm erratic. Around me, the elves stirred uneasily. Some clutched at one another. Others kept staring at the barred door as if expecting it to burst open. Ruby, sitting close, fidgeted with her hands. Her red eyes, usually so bright, wavered as she glanced at me, trying to smile but unable to hide the tremor in her lips. Sounds like something exciting is happening, huh? Her words were light, but her voice betrayed her fear. Mira leaned in at once, wrapping an arm gently around her shoulders. Shish, it's all right. Don't force yourself, Ruby. Stay close to me. Her tone was warm, motherly, even as tension pressed into her own voice. Another wave of footsteps shook the floor. Shouts overlapped now, too many to distinguish, but one word kept repeating, again and again: merchandise. The reminder twisted my chest. That's what we were to them. Nothing more. The shouting outside grew louder, closer, until I could almost feel the vibrations running through the stone beneath my feet. It was clear if we stayed here, we'd be nothing but cornered prey. I rose to my feet. Everyone, stay here. My voice carried across the cell, steady and resolute. I'll find a way out. Once the path is clear, I'll come back for you. Celine, Myra's eyes widened, her arms still protectively wrapped around Ruby. Before she could speak, a smaller voice cut in. No. Kat pushed herself up, her fists balled tight, mismatched eyes flashing with stubborn light. I'm not staying here while you go alone. I'll follow you no matter what you say. I frowned, meeting her gaze. Kat, she trembled, but her determination didn't waver. I'd rather face danger at your side than sit here waiting to be taken away again. A sigh slipped past my lips. She was far too much like me. Very well, but stay close. Do not leave my side. Her answering smile was shaky but bright. Turning to Mira, I placed a hand on her shoulder. Take care of the others. Keep them safe until I return. She nodded firmly, though her eyes shone with worry. I will. Just don't take unnecessary risks. I reached up and touched the cold iron clasp at my neck. Enough was enough. My magic surged, snapping the slave collar into shards that fell lifelessly to the floor. Gasps rippled through the elves. Without hesitation, I opened the stomach space. And from it I drew a blade, one of Kurob's unique grade creations. Its polished edge caught the faint light of the cell, the gleam so sharp it drew widened eyes from the elves. But there was no time to explain. One smooth slash tore through the iron-barred door. Metal screeched before giving way, the heavy lock clattering against the stone. The path was open. Let's go, I whispered to Kat. We stepped into a narrow hall, the air thick with smoke and tension. Bare stone walls closed around us, torches sputtering weakly in their sconces. From the right, the clamor of boots approached, bandits rushing toward us, weapons already drawn. Escapees. Cut them down. Kat stiffened beside me, but I raised my sword with calm grace. Stay behind me. The first of the bandits surged into the corridor, blades flashing in the dim light. I stepped forward to meet them, steel singing as it cut through the air. Steel clashed against mine, sparks leaping as I forced the bandit's blade aside. My movements were precise, efficient, each strike meant to end a life. One fell with a strangled gasp, another staggered back clutching his stomach before I drove my sword clean through his chest. They kept coming, shouting over one another in desperation. Don't let her through, she's just one woman, cut her down. Fools. I could see the fear trembling in their arms even as they tried to convince themselves of courage. Their blades wavered, mine did not. I stepped forward, cutting down a man who swung too high, then pivoted, slicing through another's side. Blood splattered across the stone floor, mixing with the torchlight's glow. Kat stayed close, pressed against the wall behind me just as I told her, her wide eyes following every motion of my blade. More of them rushed from the right. I moved to intercept, fluid, almost dancing as steel bit through flesh. The air filled with their screams, the crash of weapons, the smell of iron. My sword never slowed. One tried to swing at my back. I twisted, meeting his strike, and with a smooth motion severed his arm from his body. His scream ended as quickly as it began. Another lunged. I sidestepped, cut low, and his legs crumpled out from under him. The stone floor shook beneath the weight of their corpses. I will kill you, one of them shrieked, only for his throat to be opened by my blade a heartbeat later. I surged forward, breaking their weak line. My sword flashed in the torchlight, one after another falling before they could even register the strike. The bandits' bravado had crumbled to pure panic. And then, boom, the sound ripped through the air, so loud it swallowed every other noise in the hall. The stone floor trembled beneath my feet, dust shook loose from the ceiling, and every head turned toward the source. The explosion thundered from behind me, rattling the stone under my feet. I froze, sword raised, as the last bandit crumpled at my feet. The hall ahead was clear but the one behind me. Slowly, I turned. What had been a narrow corridor was now an open wound in the dungeon walls, scorched black, stone fractured, heat still radiating in waves. Whatever had been standing there moments ago had been erased, reduced to drifting ash and smoldering fragments. And right behind me, so close I could almost feel her breath, stood Kat. The moment my eyes found hers, she stiffened. Her lips pursed, then, pfui, a whistle, casual, off-key, and absolutely out of place in the suffocating silence. I narrowed my gaze. Kat's shoulders rose ever so slightly, as if she could hide behind her own posture. Her eyes flicked left, then right, deliberately avoiding mine. She folded her arms, then unfolded them just as quickly, clasping her hands behind her back like a child caught stealing sweets. Kat, I said, voice edged with suspicion. She blinked rapidly. Why yes. Her whistle resumed louder this time, and even more forced. Do you, I asked slowly, know anything about that? Kat's expression twitched. She glanced at the charred ruins behind her, then back, forcing a crooked smile. That, no, just, a little, magical mishap. Yep, enemy mage's spell backfired. Happens all the time, totally normal. I stared. Her laugh came out strained, and she tilted her head, as if feigning curiosity at the still smoking rubble. Would you look at that? Spell failure. Very tragic. Ha. The corner of my mouth curved in the faintest trace of disbelief. Spell failure. Her whistle cracked. The explosion still echoed in my ears, the acrid smell of burnt stone thick in the air. Kat's frantic whistling and awkward smile only deepened my suspicion, but I forced my attention back inward.